Do I say
This video will provide you with a quick review over how to change your spark plugs on an M109R. To do that, review your maintenance manual or go on the internet to find the maintenance schedule. I'm sorry that this is difficult to see, but you will be able to find it at the website, which I'll list in the information box below. Make sure that you have the appropriate spark plugs. You can find them at any motorcycle shop. Also, you can buy them over the internet. These were $10 each. And then make sure that you have your appropriate tools to get the job done. First step is to remove the seat, and that's very easy. This will give you access to the 12mm tank bolt, which you will also have to remove in order to start the process of removing your fuel tank. Use a 12mm socket, an extension, and ratchet. Now, the removal of the side fairings are what some people recommend, but I found that it's really not necessary, so I listed it as optional. You can remove them, and if so, you want to remove this bolt here and then pull the side fairings off. Now, the fuel tank has 4 connections. In order to get to them, first you're going to prop up the tank, and I'm just using a tool to do that. Then you'll be able to identify the wiring harness, the overflow tube. What's not pictured here also is the fuel line, which you'll be able to reach here as well. So reach in and disconnect that wiring harness. Now, the overflow tube has a metal clamp, and you'll need to use some pliers in order to release the tension in that clamp and then pull straight down, and that clamp and the tube will come off. Next, disconnect the fuel line, and to do that you have to squeeze the blue clips toward the top of that hose, and the hose will come off and you will get a few drops of fuel from the tank, but your tank will not fully empty. Lastly, if you wanted to remove the gauge cluster plus the fuel tank, you'll disconnect this harness, and that will allow you to do that. Because I have a light kit with a switch that's embedded within my gauge cluster, I'm not going to remove the gauge cluster and tank together, but instead I'm going to detach the gauge cluster from the tank and lay it over to the side. That will allow me to remove the tank in isolation, and you'll see that here. At this point, removing the fuel tank is easy. I have a tank protector, which I'm also going to lift up. Once that's done, I'll be able to lift this tank off, and make sure that you have some towels on the floor so that you can protect your tank from scratches. Now, identify the spark plug number 1 connector. You'll have to lift straight up on this connector to detach it. Once you do that, you'll be able to look down into the port to see spark plug number 1. Use a spark plug removal socket, extension, and ratchet to remove that spark plug. I'm using a 10-inch extension. Then we'll replace that old spark plug with a new one. I'm hand tightening, and there are no specs regarding the foot-pounds that you need to put on the spark plug, so I'm just getting them snug without making them too tight because I don't want to strip the threads. Now, we're going to have to remove the side air filter on the left. In order to do that, we'll have to remove this bolt here at the top, and then there's a second bolt on the bottom aspect, and you'll have to remove it. I'm pointing to it here. I'm using a hex bit with a screwdriver to remove these bolts. Now, there is a clamp here at the top that you'll have to loosen by using a Phillips screwdriver. Once that's done, you'll be able to detach that hose. And then you'll note that on the back side of the unit, there is a spring clamp with an extra hose there. You will have to release that. And then the housing comes off completely. Now you'll be able to remove the chrome cover. This is the second chrome cover, not the one to the front. This one pulls straight off. And then you'll be able to identify spark plug number 2 connector that you'll be able to remove by pulling straight up. Then, of course, we'll remove spark plug number 2. And then we'll replace spark plug number 2 as we did with spark plug number 1. Reinstalling the air filter is self-explanatory. You're just going to carry out the steps in reverse order. One thing that you didn't see me do here was to connect that hose on the back side of the air housing because I forgot to do it, so I had to pull this all off and then redo it the correct way. So don't forget to reconnect that hose on the back surface of this unit. Now we're going to remove the same air filter unit on the right side, carrying out the same steps. You have to remove the 2 bolts, and then don't forget to loosen that clamp with the Phillips screwdriver. And then of course you have to release that hose on the back side with the spring clamp. And now we're going to remove the front chrome cover. This is where you will find spark plug number 3 and number 4. You'll see spark plug number 3 here. Spark plug number 4 is at the top here. That's going to be the most challenging one to get to. So let's start with the easier one. Pull straight up on that connector and you'll be able to disconnect it off of spark plug number 3. I'm going to use my 3-inch extension along with the spark plug socket to get to this spark plug. And then we'll replace it with the new spark plug. I'll have to place the socket in there first, then attach the extension, hand tighten, and then use this ratchet to snug it down. Now before I reconnect spark plug number 3 connector, we have to get to spark plug number 4, and in order to do that we'll have to remove part of the front fairing. So remove the tab at the top here, also the screw from the side, and that piece should pull off. We'll also have to remove this screw. We're not going to remove this bottom fairing, but we will push it over to the side so that then we can reach the spark plug connector 4. And now you can see the port where that spark plug number 4 is located. I'll use the same socket, extension, and ratchet. But of course I'll have to put the socket in first, then the extension, and then attach the ratchet in order to remove spark plug number 4. Placing the new spark plug is self-explanatory. Once you snug it down, it is a bit challenging to get your hands in there to remove the extension and the socket. So I use needle nose pliers in order to do that. Now I'm just attaching spark plug number 4 connector, and once I get that in place, I'm using the 10-inch extension to press down on that connector to snap it in place, and then with my hands I'm able to get to spark plug number 3 connector. We're going to replace the fairings by putting them back on. Just working to make sure everything is well aligned. We'll reinstall the side chrome cover here just by pushing straight onto the bike. And now we're going to reattach the air filter unit by carrying out all the steps that we did on the left side of the bike. Don't forget that hose on the inner aspect of the air filter unit. Now reattaching the fuel tank is pretty easy, but we need to identify our 3 connections just to make sure we don't forget anything. First order of business is to just place the tank on top. We're going to need to prop it up with a tool so that we can get back to those connections. make sure to reconnect the wiring harness, overflow tube, and fuel line. Once you do that and attach your gauge cluster, just replace the 12mm bolt in the tank so that it can be attached, and then we can start up the bike to make sure that it's running appropriately. I couldn't find any videos like this providing step-by-step instructions on how to replace the spark plugs on the M109R, so I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed this. Fortunately, the bike sounds great. I took it out for a ride immediately afterwards, and it ran perfectly. Please give me your comments and feedback below, like and subscribe as usual, and you guys have a blessed day.